Hey everybody, welcome to the behind the scenes of The Return. So, as everyone knows, The Return was the 5-episode miniseries for the June special in 2016, hopefully the first in our annual tradition. First things first, I actually have a bunch of thanks to give out, so first and perhaps most foremost is Kieran Dave, who hosted the server that we built everything on and filmed everything on throughout the month. He paid for it entirely out of his own pocket. I offered, but he would not have it. It was very thankful, very friendly. Thank you very much for that, Dave. The actors, then of course the people who made it all possible for you to see 6 or 7 people that I voiced every single one of on camera. We have Sakalo, we have Sparks Flame, Serenovis, Bamboo, Folimoly, and Kitato. Kitato's internet kind of didn't help, but they did try, so I will thank them for that. Obviously a lot of these names you'll remember from Sunless, so obviously go check out their Tumblrs that will be listed in the description below. So go check out their videos such as Den of Sin, because both of those actors are in here as well. Next, onto just kind of why I decided to do a Minecraft scripted RP series that meant that I would be voicing 7 different people at times and also had to do a whole bunch of complicated coding and visual effects for. And honestly, that last part kind of sells it. I wanted to try and push my limits, learn some tricks that I didn't know before that I probably should have, and all this kind of stuff. I wanted to establish essentially a new base level for scripted series. You always see people taking the mods that they have and pushing them to do some kind of thing for a series, but you don't often see people establishing an entire series based on those mods, or using those mods to their full effect, or doing all sorts. So, a little while before the Sitch, when I was offline for about 4 months, I was called upon by Nano Sounds of the Yogscast Kim, to quickly and hastily write up some code for her series to Infinity, and that was to insert the alien species. And it sort of hit my mind on the idea of what would happen if you could make a mod specifically for a series. If you could make a mod that was purely for one specific Minecraft series, if you sort of had your own on-hand coder. And that got my mind to thinking, well, what would happen if I made a mod that gave me access to my entire cast of Lyings? It turns out I put about 7 of them in a series. So that was my last point here on why I did this whole thing, was to get more use out of my ever-expanding cast of Lyings. So we had Blood Lying and Summoner Lying and Cyborg Lying, who've never had a series, but are appearing here. We had Witch Lying, that people have been wanting to see more of since Chaosville. We've had Never Lying, who hasn't seen any use at all since Never Expedition. And we had Sir Lying, who very recently wrapped up this series. So I've got this continually expanding archive of characters, and I really wanted to put some of them to more use, because they're all really interesting people, and there's reasons that I came up with all of them and started playing a whole series with them, so it's interesting to sort of bring them back and put them in these new contexts and see just how it affects them and the like. So the people who are in this series are going to be affected by it for a long while. Sir Lying is definitely going to be a different character, more or less, the next time you see him than he was at the end of Night of Fangs. As for how the rest of them are going to be affected, well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. With that, on to the part that I'm sure everyone's waiting for. How did we do all of it? So the first thing, obviously, is the characters. How did I have 6 people look like 6 different versions of me? How did I add on the different visual tweaks? How is Witch Lying having all of his particles? How is Summoner Lying having those fiery things at the back of them? How is Blood Lying having all of his orbiting bloodlets? And the answer is, I made a mod. I made possibly the first mod ever made specifically for a Minecraft series like this. So we have costumes, basically. If you remember me releasing the wardrobe mod not too long ago, then that is built on code that's spun off from the Return mod, and it includes a cast of the Never Lying, Summoner Lying, Blood Lying, Cyborg Lying, Witch Lying, Night Lying, Sister Lying, Timothy, and just a standard pig zombie, who was, for reasons of development, called Volfug. Expanding from what Wardrobe eventually became, every single member of the cast has individual abilities. Now, some of these are just things like they get potion effects as standard. Never Lying, for example, has constant saturation, and whenever he's holding an axe, he gets strength. Sister Lying doesn't really have anything. Timothy can fly, that was another thing we put in. Also teleport, as well as summon lightning, as you saw, and even hurl fireballs. The Witch can run on water. Cyborg Line has his mining laser and his item magnet. Summoner, of course, has an entire spell system, because apparently I'm a bit mad. And all of these things. And all of these things were specifically, they had to work on multiplayer, they had to be visual to the replay mod, which I'll talk about in a quick moment, and they had to reflect the character that was using them. So, for a few of these, that meant that I did actually have to build an entire basis of a mod, which was, you know, fun, but worth it in the end, because now I guess I have like the code base to make whole mods again. And that then brings me, of course, to the camera angles, which was the replay mod. The replay mod is more or less just built to be a time-lapse tool, but if you set the time to be a 1-to-1, so 1 second equals 1 second in the video, you can turn it into a full-blown camera, and it actually allows you to do stuff that you couldn't even do with an actual, like, full-blown movie budget, because you've got all of your actors doing everything that needs to happen in a scene in an area, and you can put your camera anywhere, and you can get multiple shots simultaneously without them interfering, and you can do a whole bunch of really cool stuff. And my tests for the possibility of doing that, of what it would allow me to do with just a little bit of clever editing, was seen very shortly after I got back from the Sitch, with the sort of Tardis transition tests. And that was an effect that we didn't ever actually end up using in the course of the return, but we'll hopefully see more use later down the line. It does have a few limitations, which I'll talk about in a quick moment, but overall, the replay mod, I think, has a ton of potential if you're going to be shooting cinematic series from here on. I am definitely going to be trying to use it as much as I can, or at least as much as I reasonably can, because I think it really does lend quite a substantial volume of capacity to this whole process. Okay, so how did I do specific things that happened in the course of this series? Starting with episode 1, we have the TARDIS console projections. So when Never Lying is showing everybody the Paint It Red installation and Timothy, how did I get Timothy and the Paint It Red to be hovering and rotating on top of the console? Well, that was pretty easy, because Replay Mod allows for a particular kind of chroma keying. Specifically, it will allow you to use the sky as a green screen. So using that, I was able to take a quick shot of the specific building or person in question, do a quick rotation using some vector math to get the ideas, and then I just chroma key out the green screen. I stick them in place on roughly the point on the scene where they want to be, and then I change the opacity so that they're hovering. And last but not least, because there are pillars in that console, which I slightly regret adding, I had to do a quick little clip mask so that they would always be behind the foremost pillar in that console, making it look that they're actually inside all 4 of them. For episode 3, we have that big zoom across the off-kilter Surtur. The Surtur is actually at about a 30-45 degree pitch down angle, and that was achieved incredibly easily. Honestly, all I had to do was alter the roll value, which for most of my shots is 0, and then because that value is now off kilter, I could zoom up to and around the Surtur and it would appear to be at that floating angle, because by virtue of the green screen, it was already an off-kilter. It was already an off-kilter kind of centerpiece, which meant I can stick it anywhere and it will be at that same angle whilst still obeying Minecraft angles. Pretty handy. So obviously the bulk of special effects happened in sort of episode 4. So the first one that we are probably most interested in is the battle screens, when Timothy is surveying what's going on around the Paint It Red. And this was really, really simple. All I had to do was run around having a different character be wailing on a few pigmen. And then I went into the replay file and filmed them from roughly up and above the character, so it looked like it was some kind of security camera position. And then I just sort of resized, positioned them in the frame, and did a little bit of clipping so that it fit all nicely. And I did try initially to get this to be locked to the actual positions of the screens. I tried to green screen the screens and everything, but ultimately it was just easier to have a static shot with Timothy in front of it. In future versions, I might try to do a bit more on the terms of motion tracking of a scene, because my initial idea was to have it slowly zoom in from the ceiling level towards Timothy whilst these screens were playing, but that just didn't work out with the motion tracking too much, and that's probably more due to my software than anything else, so that's something I can work on later. Next, of course, in episode 4 was the terrified pigman being harassed by Witchline. And that again was a really simple piece. We just had to have a close-up view of the pigman from the replay mod, and then we took a green screen background view of the witch with their wings out so that they are flying, because the witch actually has wings that can be toggled on and off inside of the costume mod. And just did a bit of flapping on that, just put it in front of the pigman, and then we chroma key out the green screen background of the witch. We blur the witch a little bit so it's a bit hazy, and then we use that as the inverted mask for a pure black screen, and that turns the witch into a silhouette, causing it to look like the witch is bearing down in full eldritch horror fashion upon this pigman. Possibly the most complex part of episode 4 was the charge that is being loaded into the chamber of the Paint It Red and being ready to go off and do something horrible and nasty to a universe nearby. And I initially tried to do that purely by taking static shots and cutting out the charge so that I could move it in a sort of old school picture book animation style, but it just didn't work out right. So in the end, next I tried to stop motion it, as Minecraft is wont to do. So I had a line of command blocks to remove the to clone the charge from one position to inside the chamber, to then put in the guard portion that goes down after it shoves in, and then to just clear the bottom of the sphere and then drop it. But that ended up looking, it looks too cheap, for want of a better expression. So in the end, I used the command blocks I'd already developed for the stop motion to get clean shots of everything that was happening, sans the charge, and then I had green screen views of the charge. So if you look at the part that's rotating around as the charge ignites, one charge is actually there, and the other one, which is the expanding and inverting colors version, is actually the green screen proper. And from there, I am able to take the green screen out, put the charge wherever I want it. As long as the camera view matches, then it is perfectly in frame in the screen, so it's absolutely beautiful. And that is entirely made possible by replay, allowing me to track perfectly how things go. If we didn't have replay, I would not be able to do things nearly as complex and smooth and clean as this. And from there, it drops down. There is a blinding flash as Cyborg Lion breaks the stabilizer, and I don't think many people got the implication that Cyborg Lion had been consumed in the detonation, but that's fine. And then in episode 5, we have our possibly most contentious special effect, which was the Tardis materializing and dematerializing around Timothy. And I fought so hard for like a 3-hour span in the dead of night to figure out how I was going to do that. Because the first idea I had was to orbit around Timothy as he's looking around in a sort of panic-ridden state, and the environment would just fade in and out until we eventually landed wherever we were, be it the catacombs of Harrisbed Monastery or inside of the Tardis. And you can do it, but the problem is, firstly, lighting. When you're doing green screen, lighting is an incredibly important thing, because if it doesn't match well enough, at least, between the character and the environment, then the character appears to be just superimposed on top of it, and that's hard to do with Minecraft at all. And the other part was making the motion match, because you can follow an environment easily, you can key an environment easily, but characters, people, it's hard to replicate people every single time in 2 different spots. Camera angles, easy. Environments, easy. People, not so much, because there's latency to take into account, there's sensitivities on mice, there's just the memory of motions that the people have. It's not very easy. So consequently, my initial idea of that orbit, which relies upon Timothy being in a green screen, couldn't do it. I did have one idea to try, which was using a difference mat, because that basically just subtracts parts of an image that are identical. So if I took a zoom around Timothy, and then I turned Timothy off in the rendering of replay mod so that there was just the actual background moving, then I could easily create 2 plates, one with Timothy, one without, and I could just fade in Timothy over the actual background. But unfortunately, with the software I was using, that wasn't clean enough. And there were also parts of, for example, in Harrisbed Monastery's catacombs, a lot of grey, and those grey parts inside of Timothy's skin as well, so they ended up colour matching, which was not good enough. So, in the end, I elected to, instead of using what TARDISes actually apparently look like when they're fading in and out, which is just a static in and out, which is really boring, I went for a first-person view. So it was like, I worked out exactly where in the frames Timothy's head was, and I don't match his exact head motions, but I match it close enough, and I had him look around just as the environment is changing, so you get this full three-dimensional view. And because of Replay Mod, I was able to jot down all of the nodes, work out where all of these nodes would be in the other set, which would be the monastery catacombs, and the exact motions, and from there I was actually able to create 2 camera views of 2 different locations that move in exactly the same way. And that means that I can overlap them and fade them in and out over one another, and that allows me to, with just a little bit of blur, create the rather beautiful, I think, materialization effects. Phew, right. So hopefully that's, like, inspired some people to go and do some crazy stuff with Replay Mod and custom mods and all sorts, I don't know. But I'm definitely going to be putting some of this stuff to use next year for the next June special, because I really want this to be an annual tradition here on my channel. I don't know what's happening in the next special. I don't know what effects I'll have to reuse or completely come up with out of me butt, pretty much, but it was definitely a lot of fun doing this, and I'm very thankful that people seem to have enjoyed it. So with that said, I've got 3 more Forbidden Lying videos to do. They're not in the return, as you can probably tell, but who knows where they'll turn up. Catch you next year.
Okay, stay standing right there, Sparks. Don't move. Take your hand off the keyboard. Sparks. Back the fuck up.
It's fine. I've left room for Jesus, don't worry.
Oh,
Look,
boy.
that little
All right.
spot, that's
Where Jesus can stand.
That's where Jesus can stand and make out with you.
Probably take off your whale hat there.
Blah, blah, blah. Discussion.
Oh,
I'm definitely not gay.
This is certainly a pleasant surprise. Everyone else needed some degree of explanation before they walked in here. I am hardly inundated with opportunities at the moment, because I am tremendously emo and rubbish.
well, introductions first, I think. The version of you with a bit of a Borg thing going on.
I'm still kind of salty. It's not Generator Rex flying.
Over here, we actually have two versions with a penchant for magic over metal, one focusing on hemomancy,
Yo.
Gross.
Emomancy.
and one on summoning.
That's me. Hi.
Summer lying swiftly approaches night lying.
Hi.
Hi there, so great to
I
meet
haven't
you.
read the script up to
This
this
is all
point.
very exciting.
He's very enthusiastic. Anyways.
There we go.
Okay. Everyone, this is the Painted Red, a hellborn structure currently being developed in the otherwhere outside universes, with a small army of pigmen led by this handsome devil.
It's a beautiful toaster.
Amazing. This is Timothy, half zombie pigman, half robot, created by a madman and not much better off himself.
Yeah, but he's like fucking dead now, so whatever.
Any ideas,
Yes.
Metal Man?
I can read which
This
line
is way beyond me. Maybe we can think of it like a bomb, go from there. There's a bunch of oranges right now. In which case, our first avenue would be...
Is there any way we can contain it? Put it somewhere where it won't be able to do any harm? That's a dumb idea somewhere. I'm sorry.
Even if we can shunt it out of the otherwhere, we'll probably just doom whatever world it ends up in. Personally, I don't think anyone else here has the stomach for that, which you're a piece of shit.
Perhaps we can dull his blade.
You mean escort the reload?
Hey. Soft.
Stop being gay. Stop it.
We don't need
Stop
to
it.
Why don't you say
Stop it.
squishing instead?
I will forcibly push you apart.
For Jesus. No.
Leave room for your heterosexuality then.
Oh, jeez.
Look, I'm experimenting. It's fine.
If my inflection was a bit weird, it's
I-
because I didn't read the line beforehand, and I thought it led
been
somewhere
on-
else.
I've been on my own for a long time, and now there's only myself. Also, is it really gay if it's with yourself? Really?
Not really.
Not really, it's masturbation.
Oh, God.
Okay, so I didn't realize that
Masturbation
there was
is
an
gay,
actual...
didn't you know?
I didn't realize that there was an actual script below the brief, so I was looking at the brief and going, where's everyone getting these lines from? And then I scrolled down, and, you know,
Well
Hello?
done.
you know what? Fuck you guys.
Two lungs chilling in a Tardis, then a block apart because they're not
Hey,
gay.
are you just jealous? Are you jealous? This is fine.
Are we all standing in one spot now? Is this happening?
Which lines?
We start off a recording.
I hate you all.
This is a true lying verse. Ah!
Alright, where are we going now? Oh, I should probably...
How do I unpossess?
How do you unpossess?
Oh, I should...
Ah.
Not like that.
Remember why?
You shift. You hit
I-
shift.
Oh, it's shift.
You
Okay.
dismount, basically.
God.
That is literally what it is, so... Excuse me.
Who's
That's
Sarah
funny.
mounting?
Who's mounting me is more like.
Okay.
Going into
Is everybody
summoning.
else in position?
Hey, Case. If you're invisible, we don't have to leave room for Jesus.
It's not
They'll
gay
be
if you're
children.
invisible.
This is the part where night lying is accidentally problematic.
Not night lines like whole
As if
character.
it's not problematic at all times.
Problematic in regards to like cyborgs and prostheses and whatnot.
Is there anything
As
like
if he
that
hasn't
that's
already
not
been considering
problematic?
genocide enough to be considered problematic.
Your favourite's problematic. Lying. Wants to commit genocide.
Yeah,
Doesn't
fucking
like
watch
prosthetics.
Generator Rex out of order. You're gonna be salty about that.
Isn't that the entire point of a team? Combine strengths, cover weaknesses.
Oh, don't be so dense. I'm not talking about our porcine adversary. This team was assembled to solve each other's problems, and yours is no doubt why I'm here.
Sorry, I'm sure the whole mascara in the ears thing gets you a lot of action. I just don't really go for that kind of
Which
Amazing.
line teleports directly in front of Bloodline, essentially pinning him against the wall? Tabedon.
I'm drawing this, by the way.
Yeah,
That's
right.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can see it, can't you? The precious life flowing through their veins, that most potent of power sources. The power in the red blood.
I don't know what
But it's so much more than just substance, than just matter. You can make them dance like
not leaving room for Jesus.
you can make them dance like puppets, or just take whatever you needed or wanted.
I don't think they'd be very agreeable to that.
Of course not. It would
Yeah,
hurt so
that's
much. But
Please.
wouldn't they do the same if they could? If they had to? Does the tick care about the pain of its prey? Does the bat?
You're a monster and a lunatic. You make me out some kind of lowly parasite, but that's not what blood magic is about. Also, you're already uncomfortably
Bloodline
close.
tries to sidestep away from Witchline, but Witchline moves in front of them again, taking a more aggressive tone.
Please, let me free. I can feel your pronouns. Stop it.
Freedom.